From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. Today we begin in Venezuela, where the Comptroller General has barred opposition lawmaker Juan Guaido from holding public office for 15 years. Speaking on public television, Luis Amoroso said Guaido had usurped public office and that the Oversight Office was investigating serious irregularities in his personal finances.
Article 139 of the Constitution refers to public office holders who are guilty of abuse of power or who violate the Constitution or break the law. And Assembly member Juan Guaido has usurped public office and undertaken actions in concert with foreign governments that have done damage to the Venezuelan people and to public property, disturbing the public peace, democratic stability, and the constitutional order. An initial investigation of the personal wealth of the citizen and lawmaker Juan Guaido showed clear inconsistencies between, on one hand, the wealth he has officially declared and his income as a member of the National Assembly, and on the other hand, the very considerable and exaggerated expenditure on his lifestyle, which a member of the National Assembly could not normally afford.
Our correspondent Madeline Garcia has more from Caracas.
So these are the measures taken by the Venezuelan state. Now we are waiting for a statement by the Attorney General in relation to this recommendation by the Comptroller General in relation to the congressman and self-proclaimed president Juan Guaido. Guaido has already come out and said that since in their view the government is illegitimate, there is no comptroller and no Attorney General. So they continue to behave outside the constitutional framework. But while that is happening, the Minister of Communications also gave more details of what happened in the attack on the Guri hydroelectric plant. He said it was snipers who set off the fire in the transmission area of the plant and caused this latest outage. There's also the contingency plan, which is underway to provide for communities, for hospitals, and the most vulnerable sections of Venezuelan society. We are now in the eastern part of Caracas, where water distribution points have been set up, where people can come and collect their water under a plan developed by the Ministry of Eco-Socialism, precisely to make it easier for the population.
Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is continuing his trip to Africa with a solidarity meeting with SWAPO, the ruling party in Namibia. Members of SWAPO greeted Arreaza with a song ahead of the meeting. On Wednesday, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister was in South Africa for a SADC conference on Western Sahara, where he met leaders from several African countries. In Namibia, he has met the president and several ministers to discuss cooperation.
Countries with a history of international solidarity, like South Africa or Namibia, are supporting the people of Venezuela and President Nicolas Maduro in carrying on this battle on the international stage. The people of Africa, of the Americas, and the world supporting the Venezuelan Constitution and international law and rejecting any kind of intervention. We just came out of a meeting with the President of Namibia's National Assembly, who also expressed support and was very interested in cultural exchanges, with our experience of the system of our youth orchestras, and also with the Namibian foreign minister, where we talked about the possibilities for cooperation in areas like agriculture, mining, education, and housing. Namibia has a housing deficit, and we have the experience of our great housing mission, so we can give the technical support to Namibia, also in energy. So we are drawing up a plan with these countries in Africa, and also in the Middle East, as part of the Bolivarian diplomacy for peace.
Russia has responded to warnings from the U.S. President Donald Trump that Russian military personnel should get out of Venezuela. The Foreign Ministry in Moscow said that Latin America is nobody's backyard. This came after 2 Russian transport planes arrived in Caracas last Saturday as part of a military cooperation agreement signed in 2001.
The Russian side has not violated anything. Neither international agreements nor Venezuelans' own laws. Russia is not changing the balance of power in the region. Russia is not threatening anyone. unlike some officials in Washington.
The supposed presence of Russian or Cuban troops in Venezuela is Washington's latest argument for tightening its blockade. The country is increasingly at the center of a geopolitical dispute.
The arrival of 2 Russian military planes in Venezuela triggered a torrent of hysteria in the United States and from its allies in the OAS and Lima Group.
We're looking very much at the troika of tyranny, including Cuba and Nicaragua, as well as Maduro. Part of the problem in Venezuela is the heavy Cuban presence, 20 to 25,000 Cuban security officials. In this administration, we're not afraid to use the phrase Monroe Doctrine. This is a country in our hemisphere.
The political elite in the United States has never ceased to think that Latin America and the whole of the Americas belongs to them. If you look carefully, you will see that all administrations have conducted interventions in Latin America. They try to control the intelligence services, the military, the governments, and the economy, as well as their foreign policy. The only difference is that now they say it openly.
China and Russia tell Washington that such bullying will no longer work.
We will continue our friendly and mutual beneficial cooperation with Latin American countries. Latin America does not belong to any country. It is nobody's backyard.
I would like to remind John Bolton, if you stop tormenting Venezuela with sanctions, and if international banks unblock Venezuela's billions of dollars, the Venezuelan people will be able to buy medicine and food without the generous aid of Washington.
Since the 7th of March, Venezuela's electricity grid has suffered serious acts of sabotage. The victims know who they think is responsible.
The opposition, with their lies and distortions, are trying to provoke an intervention here in Venezuela. They think the United States will come and help us, but in fact the only ones helping us are our allies like China and Russia.
If we let that so-called humanitarian aid into the country, do you think we'll still be here? No, all this will be taken over by those U.S. lawmakers.
In desperation, the Venezuelan right is begging for an invasion.
I wouldn't rule it out, but nor do I think it's the most likely possibility, because Venezuela has powerful and sophisticated air defenses, as a result of its military agreements with Russia. The S-300 air defense system is one of the most modern there is. That agreement was signed in 2009, and the system was installed in 2013.
An invasion isn't impossible, but it wouldn't be easy.
The 8th Summit of the Association of Caribbean States is taking place in Nicaragua as the ACS celebrates its 25th anniversary. The conference is set to end on Friday with the motto, Uniting Efforts in the Caribbean to Face Climate Change. The 25 member states, 9 associate members, and 6 organizations all attended. Our correspondent in Managua, Maria Jose Diaz, has more.
At the launch of the 24th meeting of the Council of Ministers, the Vice-Chancellor of Nicaragua addressed current issues facing Venezuela. He called on Caribbean countries to continue to adhere to the principles of non-intervention, and he criticized threats made by international countries to use force. The Vice-Chancellor said the Caribbean is a peaceful region, adding that the principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which includes peace and harmony among countries, are maintained. He also called for the strengthening of Caribbean unity to address climate change. He called for the management of non-renewable resources. The Vice-Chancellor said the region must take steps to limit the emission of greenhouse gases and to adapt to the changes. The ACS members held indoor meetings. The International Cooperation Summit will end on Thursday evening.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute. Welcome back. There have been more demonstrations in Sao Paulo City Hall in Brazil as Mayor Bruno Covas refuses to meet with the Guarani people. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Lemus, was at the protest and has the details.
We are here in the City Hall of Sao Paulo. Guarani indigenous people from the Uragua village near the city have prayed and danced outside since last night against the closure of indigenous health systems all over Brazil by Bolsonaro's government. Health services will now depend on municipalities, and they will lose resources that have been in the Constitution since 1988 and have been the responsibility of the federal government. Indigenous people have been demonstrating here in Sao Paulo and 6 other Brazilian states since yesterday. They have camped outside and are waiting for a conversation with Mayor Bruno Cavas. However, no authority has been willing to reply to them. People that have lost not only access to health posts, and also doctors, nurses, and medicines since the program was closed, and the Cuban doctors were ordered out of the indigenous villages because of Bolsonaro's aggressions, and now also the resources given to private companies that provided medicines have been cut. They've resisted for 500 years. They will continue to resist for years to come. And here they demonstrate waiting for a dialogue with any Sao Paulo authority or from Bolsonaro's government, which continues to attack indigenous communities.
And also in Brazil, people are outraged over President Jair Bolsonaro's instruction to the armed forces to celebrate the anniversary of the 1964 coup, which unleashed 21 years of military rule.
As a candidate for the presidency in 2017, Jair Bolsonaro praised the military dictatorship that saw hundreds of people killed. He said the main mistake of the dictatorship was to torture and not to kill. Sometime after this, he praised the chief torturer of the regime, and now he has asked the armed forces to commemorate the start of the dictatorship on March 31st.
Lamentável. This initiative pushed by the president is nothing but disastrous. It's openly neglecting and attacking the lives lost during the dictatorship. It's an affront to survivors. I feel such sorrow just remembering the atrocities done to the babies, when the military would pick up months-old babies and throw them against the wall or bash their heads in front of their parents to torture them. We cannot forget that it wasn't just a monster behind those crimes, just a criminal. It was the Brazilian state as a whole.
Enea Stutz was part of the Amnesty Torture and Persecution Commission for 9 years. She believes the dictatorship represents a period of genocide for Brazilians, when anyone who would dare to disagree with the military government between 1964 and 1985 will be killed.
It's very common for authorities, along with Brazilian media, to use numbers ranging between 300 and 400 people when they refer to victims of the dictatorship, in order to make the comparison with the total population and undermine these atrocities. They compare it to the dictatorships of Argentina, Uruguay, or Chile, to say what happened here wasn't as bad. But they fail to mention that their numbers only consider white victims from urban areas. But what about the indigenous communities that were eradicated? They are never brought up, despite there being official numbers.
While there are few records of the crimes perpetrated by the state during those years, to forget or to even pretend like they never happened is an insult to Brazilian society as a whole.
Brazilian history is in debt to the truth. We lived through a military dictatorship, which jailed and killed many social leaders. We established a truth commission that is tasked with uncovering the whole truth for the sake of the victims, and so that Brazilians can face their past. We will keep those memories alive.
Experts have assured that undermining the suffering of fellow citizens, like Bolsonaro has continuously done, is an affront to all.
In Guatemala, relatives of the victims killed in a truck crash are mourning as their claim remains. At least 18 people were killed Wednesday evening when a truck crashed into a crowd of people near the municipality of Nahuala. Dozens more were severely injured. The crash happened as the group of people went onto the road to check on a person who had already been hit by a car.
We went to attend this emergency. We carried out an external examination on 18 corpses that were delivered to their families today.
We are worried, but above all, we are sad. The people of Nahuala are mourning. We hope that God will accompany the deceased. We feel sorry for the people who are injured in hospitals.
Our correspondent in Guatemala, Maria Rosales, has the details.
The government of Guatemala has declared 3 days of national mourning after the tragedy which took place in the Nahuala municipality on Wednesday night. The tragedy happened when a group of people gathered on the road to investigate the aftermath of a previous crash in which one person got run over. As they did this, a truck ran over them. 18 people were killed and another 18 were injured. Initially, there was confusion about the number of victims. First, it was said that over 30 people were killed in the incident, but later on, authorities confirmed the actual numbers. A temporary morgue has been set up where the crash happened, as the injured remain hospitalized.
We thank Mario Rosales for that report. And staying in Guatemala, fears are rising concerning the proposed amnesty that would allow dozens of war criminals to walk free. It would release army officers convicted of forced disappearances, torture, and sexual violence. And it's supported by President Jimmy Morales. 45,000 people disappeared and 250,000 indigenous Mayans were killed during the 36-year-long conflict with the U.S.-backed government.
They took my father on the 31st of December of 1981. He was in town and the army grabbed him and took him to the municipal. And to this day, we don't know his whereabouts. And it's incredible that they want to approve that law because it's not right. Their remains need to be found, and I do not agree with the approving of that law.
In the face of this kind of acts committed against civilians, they definitely cannot apply any type of amnesty. It is worrying to even consider these reforms to the National Reconciliation Law, because they're definitely infringing on victims, the survivors, and all the victims that passed away so many years, so that in the end, they get justice.
Meanwhile, Guatemala's electoral court is appealing a decision by the Supreme Court that allows the daughter of the former dictator Efraín Ríos Montt to run for president. Suri Ríos has come under fire for her candidacy since the Constitution bans the relatives of leaders of the dictatorship from running for office. Ríos Montt was charged with genocide and crimes against humanity committed during his rule in the 80s. His trial was still in progress when he died in 2018. Moving on, India's President Ram Nath Kovind is headed to Bolivia for an official visit. Our correspondent in La Paz, Freddy Morales, has more.
President of India, Ram Nath Kovind, will arrive to Santa Cruz this Thursday. The main goal of this official visit is to consolidate commercial relations between Bolivia and India. This marks the first official visit of an Indian head of state to the South American nation. President Kovind is arriving to Bolivia with a delegation of almost 100 people, mostly entrepreneurs, that will be meeting with Bolivian entrepreneurs and both presidents. President Evo Morales and President Kovind will take part in a meeting with more than 200 businessmen that is scheduled for this Friday. Also on Friday, both presidents will hold a private meeting where they will discuss various agreements on technology, health, and mutual cooperation. And also, the Indian president will be awarded by the government of Bolivia. President Kovind's official visit will end on Saturday, where he will later head to Chile.
That was Freddy Morales from La Paz. Ecuador's assembly has agreed to look into accusations of corruption against President Lenín Moreno. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has more.
After several hours of debate, Ecuador's National Assembly approved the request to investigate Moreno's in-a-paper corruption case. The Assembly's commission will have 20 days to submit a report.
There is a commission to deal with this in the Assembly. We have to review the facts. And we are not only talking about the president. It's true, we are also talking about his family members.
I think it's good that the Commission will discuss the investigation, but all the parties are not represented. We are not talking about just anyone. We are talking about the President of the Republic.
During Moreno's presidency, an anti-corruption secretary was created to handle corruption scandals. However, he says he supports the Assembly's decision to investigate Moreno's corruption case and will not interfere with the investigation.
We will always allow an investigation of an act of corruption. Neither we, nor the executive, nor the legislative, nor Moreno supporters will stop that. The Assembly resolved yesterday to investigate the document published by the media, and we will soon see the results.
In light of these events, several political parties have criticized the government's actions. Lawmaker Amapola Naranjo confirmed she will submit a new complaint against Assembly President Elizabeth Cabezas for influencing votes to stop Moreno's investigation. And the president of the commission handling Moreno's case said they will seek for more information as the investigation moved forward, and also clarified something that demands citizens' attention.
You have to be clear here with the citizenship and not confuse them. This is not an investigation, it is an analysis.
Meanwhile, WikiLeaks recently revealed information related with Ina Paper's corruption case. Ecuador's foreign minister said it's not up to the authorities to investigate whether Julian Assange's actions violated Ecuador's law. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Guyana's opposition People's Progressive Party has filed its appeal in the no-confidence case against the government. The matter brought by opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo will be heard on March 29th. The opposition is appealing the ruling of the locals' appeals court, which found that last December's no-confidence vote was invalid. The Court of Appeals ruled that 34 votes were required to validly pass the motion and not 33. Jagdeo has asked the regional court to set aside or reverse the judgment. SADC countries have concluded a solidarity meeting on the freedom of Western Sahara, which was attended by other countries outside of Africa, including Venezuela. Our correspondent in South Africa, Matuba Malachi, has the latest.
The Southern African Development Community, also known as SADC, concluded its special meeting with a focus on how to liberate Western Sahara from Morocco's illegal occupation. Now, the meeting was attended by delegates from beyond Southern Africa and even further outside the continent. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arias was among international supporters for a united call against the oppression of the people of Western Sahara. Arias also used his visit to South Africa to reaffirm Venezuela's relations with SADC member states. He met with the president of Namibia and his delegation on the sidelines of that meeting. Now, Venezuela has been receiving massive support from African countries in its battle against US sanctions and military action threats. And speaking of the US, you'll remember Namibia is the country Donald Trump could not pronounce back in 2017 when he met with African leaders, referring to Namibia as Nambia quite several times. That was followed by contentious remarks about African countries from the US president. With all that said and done, African nations remain strong allies with Venezuela, with a shared history of overcoming colonial oppression and white supremacy. And Venezuela's foreign minister will surely leave or has left the African continent confident of that support from African countries. It's back to you, studio.
We thank Matuba for that report. A hospital in Yemen was left in ruins after a Saudi-led coalition airstrike. Tuesday's attack left 7 people dead, including a health worker and 2 children. 8 others were wounded. Tens of thousands of people have died in the war between the Houthis and the US-backed Saudi-led coalition. The conflict has pushed the country to the brink of starvation.
The equipment and the hospital were completely destroyed by the strike on it and its workers. We were terrified. We were very scared.
Despite all the crimes that the enemy has committed in the past years, here they are again, beginning the 5th year by adding to their list of crimes, by targeting an internationally forbidden location, which is this humble hospital, Khitaf Hospital in Sada province.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.